In this lesson, we will learn about Azure Public IP addresses. First, we will answer the question why we need public IP addresses. Then we learn about public IP address configuration. Next, we learn about dynamic and static public IP addresses. After that, we start configuring dynamic and static public IP addresses. Finally, we will conclude our lesson with the review questions. Let's assume we deploy a new VM MAZ-PDC01 and connect it to the VM production subnet. Now let's analyze its inbound and outbound traffic. By default, MAZ-PDC01 accepts any traffic within the VNet or the internal network, and it does not allow any traffic from the internet because there is no connectivity, which means from a computer connected to the internet, there is no way we can access the resources on MAZ-PDC01. To access the resources on MAZ-PDC01, we have to connect from a VM within the VNet or the internal network. For the outbound traffic, by default, MAZ-PDC01 is allowed to access any resources within the VNet or the internal network as long as it is allowed by the network security group, and it can access the internet via the Azure default NAT, and it will get the NAT public IP, which is managed by Microsoft and can be changed at any time. To allow outbound traffic from an Azure resource with a predicted public IP address, or to allow an inbound traffic from the internet to an Azure resource, one of the solutions is to use public IP address. Public IP addresses can be either dynamic or static. For example, we can associate a public IP address to MAZ-PDC01. As you can see, the public IP address establishes a connectivity from MAZ-PDC01 to the internet, and now we can access the internet from MAZ-PDC01 via the public IP address, and we can easily allow the inbound traffic from the internet to MAZ-PDC01 via the public IP, which means from a computer in the internet, we can access MAZ-PDC01 as long as we allow it. Public IP address resource can be associated with Azure resources such as virtual machine network interfaces, internet-facing load balancers, VPN gateways, and application gateways. As you know, public IP address is an independent object. Therefore, to configure it, we have to specify the following parameters. First, we need to specify the name. The name must be unique within the resource group. Then we have to specify the assignment method, which can be either static or dynamic IP address. Next, we need to specify the IP version, which can be either IP version 4 or IP version 6 address. Then we need to specify the SKU, which can be either basic or standard. The value of the SKU must match with the SKU of the Azure resource that the public IP address is associated with. The standard SKU allows us to select the availability zone, which can be either no zone or zone redundant, and the tier, which can be global or regional. For example, we can configure the public IP address that is associated with MAZ-PDC01 with the following parameters. The name is ITL-VM access-PubIP01, and it is a static IP address, and it is IP version 4, and it is a standard SKU, and it has no zone, and it is a regional IP address. Let's learn about dynamic public IP address by analyzing this example. In this example, we create a new public IP object named ITL-VM access-PubIP01 and make it a dynamic public IP address. And we associate the public IP address with MAZ-PDC01, and currently MAZ-PDC01 is in the allocated status. With the current status, PubIP01 has no public IP address allocated to it. However, when we start MAZ-PDC01 for the first time, PubIP01 will be assigned with a new public IP address, for example, 172.172.173.78. And when we reboot or shut down MAZ-PDC01 from the operating system, the public IP address remains the same with PubIP01. But when we stop and deallocated MAZ-PDC01, the public IP will be removed from PubIP01. And now when we start MAZ-PDC01 again, then PubIP01 will be assigned with a new public IP address, for example, 72.50.38.100. And when we disassociated the public IP objects PubIP01 from MAZ-PDC01 like this, then the public IP address will be removed from PubIP01. Let's create a dynamic public IP address. To do that, in the search box, we type in pub, then select public IP addresses, then click on Create. In the resource group, we keep the same resource group, ITL-infra-RG01. Let's scroll down. In the region, we keep the East US region, and in the name, we type in the name ITL-VM access-PubIP01. Let's scroll down. In IP version, we keep IP version 4, and in the SKU, we change this to basic SKU to keep the cost low. And in the IP address assignment, we change it to dynamic to make it a dynamic public IP address. Everything looks good, so just click on Next. In the DDoS protection, we keep the default protection type, which is network. So just click on Next. In the task, we just click Next, and it's running validation. Now just click on Create, and it is deploying a new dynamic public IP address. Now just click on Go to Resource. As you can see, after being created, a dynamic public IP address has no IP address allocated to it. Let's associate PubIP01 to the network interface of MAZ-PDC01. To do that, we need to open MAZ-PDC01, then click on the network settings, then click on the network interface. Then in the IP configuration, we open IP configure 1 and scroll down and check on the box associate public IP address. Then we select ITL VM access pub IP01, then click on the save button, and it updated the network interface with the public IP address. Now we need to turn on MAZ-PDC01, so we click on Start. That's it. As you can see, the current status of MAZ-PDC01 is running. Let's open the public IP address. To do that, in the search box, we type in pub, then click on public IP addresses. Now we open pub IP01. As you can see, after MAZ-PDC01 is running, pub IP01 is assigned with the IP address 172.172.173.78. Let's deallocate MAZ-PDC01 to see the behavior of pub IP01. To do that, we need to click on the home link, then click on MAZ-PDC01, then click on the stop button. If we check on this box, it will convert pub IP01 to a static IP address. In this case, we want to keep it as a dynamic IP address, so we just need to click on the OK button, and it will stopping MAZ-PDC01. All we need is to wait. Now, MAZ-PDC01 is fully stopped, so we need to open pub IP01. So in here, we click on pub IP01 and we close the notification. As you can see, after MAZ-PDC01 is stopped, the pub IP01 has no IP address allocated to it. Let's turn on MAZ-PDC01 to see the behavior of pub IP01. To do that, we need to click on the home link, then open MAZ-PDC01 and click on the start button. It's starting MAZ-PDC01 now. Let's open pub IP01. As you can see, pub IP01 now is assigned with a new public IP address 72.235.232.80. Let's learn about static public IP address. A static public IP address is assigned when a public IP address is created and is not released until the public IP address resource is deleted. The assignment method can be changed if the address is not associated to a resource. For example, when we create a public IP address itl-vmaccess-pubip02 and make it static, it will immediately allocate it with a public IP address, for example, 172.82.80.18, and we can associate it with MAZ-PDC01. And no matter the status of MAZ-PDC01, for example, rebooting, shutdown, deallocated, pub IP02 still have the same public IP address 172.82.80.18, and the public IP address is only released when we delete pub IP02. And when we disassociate pub IP02 from MAZ-PDC01 like this, we can convert the pub IP02 from static to dynamic. Now let's stop MAZ-PDC01, so we need to click on stop button. In this case, we want to convert it to a static public IP address, so we need to check on this box and click on the OK button. And it's saving the public IP address and it stopped the VM. That's it. Now let's check pub IP01. To do that, we need to click on the home link and open pub IP01. Now we need to close the notifications. As you can see, pub IP01 still have the public IP address 74.235.232.80 allocated to it, even though we stop MAZ-PDC01. Let's click on the configuration. The reason is that pub IP01 is now converted to static IP address. Let's disassociate pub IP01 from the network interface of MAZ-PDC01. To do that, we need to open pub IP01 and we click on disassociate and click on yes. That's it. Let's conclude our lessons with the review questions.